We're joined now by Alison Acosta Fraser. She's director of the Rowe Institute for Economic Policy Studies at the Conservative Heritage Foundation. Her work focuses on federal spending, economic growth, and labor policies. Alison, welcome to Bloomberg News.
Thank you very much.
You heard President Obama's speech. What did you think?
Well, you know, I heard a few little bright spots, but mostly things that I either didn't agree with or that I worry about.
Such as?
There were the bright spots were when he called for some, extension of sound tax policy aimed at small business. I'd like to see that a whole lot broader, like expensing, capital gains tax cuts, and so forth. The things that I didn't like were a massive new government, well, I don't know how massive it is because he didn't talk numbers, but new government infrastructure spending, which is a tried failure. He also talked about, sort of this energy efficiency initiative that he would like to see, like a lot of people are calling it cash for cockers. And he also, most worrisome to me, talked about really reconfiguring what the TARP program would be for.
Right. But before we get to TARP, let me ask you about that infrastructure spending. At this point in time, given the state of the economy, would infrastructure spending result in what they call shovel-ready jobs right now, or you just don't agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I just don't agree with that assessment. And if you kind of unwind some of the things that happened the last time we talked about shovel-ready projects, what actually happened is we didn't see a lot of that stuff coming true. I think we need to learn from experiences of other countries as well as our own experiences when it comes to these infrastructure kind of so-called stimulus programs. Look at Japan. When they were in the 90s, they embarked on a massive infrastructure stimulus program, 10 programs in 8 years, and they lost a decade. Some would argue they lost 2 decades of melees, economic melees, and high astronomical levels of debt that they're still struggling with today. I don't think the United States should embark on the same kind of course.
Now, let me ask you about the TARP. Treasury, the administration, President today saying that should cost taxpayers about $200 billion less than initially estimated. You said this was of concern to you.
Right.
Why don't you think that surplus should go to job creation?
Because the TARP fund is now in danger of becoming a never-ending permanent government slush fund. It was intended for a very specific purpose, whether you agree with it or whether you think it did the job or not. It's now being used for all manner of things it was never intended for. It's sort of this, as I say, all-purpose slush fund to use for whatever problem policymakers may think is going to come down the pipe.
So what should it be used for?
Well, I think it should be used for deficit reduction. I think it should be closed down and not used for the latest and greatest new spending thing. It's extra money we have coming in from repayments that are happening faster than originally intended, or more than were originally intended. We just had a $1.4 trillion deficit last year, almost 10% of GDP. When you want to talk about Moody's being worried about our long-term and even short-term budget situation, I think using TARP for other purposes sends the wrong message to international credit markets.
But Alison, $200 billion extra TARP versus a trillion-plus budget deficit, will that really make a dent?
Well, it continues to layer on more and more spending instead of small incremental steps that would be very easy right now. I mean, my point is that I don't think government spending works to create jobs. I think there are other things that work to create jobs. And one of the reasons, if the administration is truly concerned about the very high unemployment and the lack of job creation, is to look at why businesses are not really hiring right now. Well, obviously they're worried about the economy, but they're also very, very worried about what Washington is going to do to them. Okay. It's an uncertain environment for them.
Alison Acosta Fraser of the Heritage Foundation, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us today.